And welcome back to another episode of Rated Gun. There is one more episode left. I hope you will love it. Jin bit his lips nervously and looked around, contemplating if he could just run away. But Namjoon was just older and could easily run out his small legs. I ask you a question, Jinsi. He figured here. There was again in lying and said, I was running away. Namjoon edged his brow. Why everyone is running away? And what is the point of running away without a lover? Because I don't want to marry a woman. Jane looked desperate. Do you think about this, Jinsei? What will your brother, our queen, will think when he get to know about your running away? No, absolutely not. Almost yelled back. My parents arranged marriage with a girl, but I don't like girls. I can't marry her. Namjoon wanted to escape but held back. The boy was immature. Running away is not a solution. He grabbed Jin's hand and led him to the direction he had been coming back. Come with me. Cookie, that annoying nickname again. Taekook turned in his head and opened his eyes to look at his husband, who was lying adorably with sleep hair and a grin. Hi. Jungkook felt himself smiling unconsciously. The boy was lovable. He was the sweetest being they deserved the world. They did not deserve anything. I made him go through. A thought struck Jungkook's mind. Even after his so many mistakes, Taehyung was willing to forgive him, and like the kind-hearted angel he was, I will not fail him. Jungkook sat up and against the headboard. He then grabbed his apparently bathed and heavenly smiling husband Taehyung, pulling him to his lap. Taehyung hid his warm and red face in his husband's neck, enjoying the moment. He felt rough hands go around his back and engaging him in embrace. That he returned, Cookie, call me Jungkook, but I like the nickname Cookie. Taehyung pouted. Call me Jungkook, Taehyung, he whispered in a low, deep voice that sent shivers down Taehyung's spine. Jungkook. The prince smiled boldly and kissed his husband on his forehead. Jungkook, yes, Taehyung, I came to tell you that King is expecting you in his chamber. Taehyung clenched as Jungkook groaned. He kissed his husband's neck, got up from his lap and ushered him to go and wash himself. Father, you call me? Jungkook sat down one of the chair and looked at his father expectantly. Are you planning to start your family yet? Jungkook said, Father, I will like to wait for a while. Jungkook Taehyung would get fertile only once a year, which means it is now or directly next year, his father rejoined. Then let it be next year, Father. I am not ready as of now. King shook his head. Well, I can't change your decision, but I will advise you to love your husband dearly. King Jian returned back to his paperwork. Of course, Father. Jungkook took his leave, letting the words sink in his mind. The remaining month passed by in a blissful blur. Taehyung was finally contented with his married life. The couple shared sweet kisses and were the happiest they have ever been together. Unknown to Taehyung, his fertile month was also over, and Jungkook need not held himself back with him. He could only take it as He could only take it as passion when his husband's morning kisses was honeyed and full of desire, unlike the previous days. He yelped and giggled when Jungkook marked at his neck, revealing red marks on the boy's pale skin. On the other hand, Jungkook felt like he would explode. He had gone so many days without touching his beloved that it hurt. They kissed, but it somehow lacked the passion he craved because he was afraid of losing his control and hurt Taehyung again. Taehyung almost squealed when Jungkook was kissing his neck. Tae felt himself getting needy and his face getting redder with the heaven he felt from his husband, and Tae loved it. After they were done, while the prince brushed himself with some paperwork, Taehyung went out of the garden, which had become his favorite place in the castle. Strolling in the evening air, he noticed Jungkook standing far away with someone whose face he couldn't see clearly. It was a man. He was looking down, and the shadow of his face made him look unrecognizable. They decided to go over and greet him. He walked casually towards them. They didn't notice him, and it looked like they were talking. He was surprised when Namjoon leaned down and kissed the person on his forehead and was contemplating not to disturb them, but Namjoon had pulled back. Now looking straight at the person, Tae gulped his sock down and continued his walk over them. He had no idea the captain had a lover. Good evening, Namjoon. Sorry to the Jin. He looked at Namjoon's lover with wide eyes, who was looking down and away from everywhere else to avoid Taehyung's shocked gaze. Prince Taehyung, greetings. I would like you to meet your brother and now my fiancé, Kim Seokjin, soon to be known as Prince Jin. Namjoon pulled Jin close by the waist and smiled lovingly at him. Jin looked awkward but blushed nonetheless. What? Jinhyung? How? When? They looked back and forth between Namjoon and Jin. They was horribly confused and a little hurt. Why didn't his Hyung tell him about this? I fell for him. Taehyung, I fell in love. Jin said simply, no explanation, nothing, just a statement. Oh, was all Taehyung could let out. Congratulations, Hyung. Taehyung cheered into his voice. I'm so happy for you, Jin Hyung and Namjoon Hyung. Thank you, Tae. Taehyung felt something off, but he never questioned it. It wasn't his business, as his Hyung was not ready to tell him anything, so why should Tae disturb his privacy? So Tae quickly excused himself from the pair and walked away, and on a whim, he turned around and saw them locked in a passionate kiss. Jin on his tiptoed, Namjoon holding his waist gently, looking so much like a perfect couple. They smiled at them. Taehyung's conflicted thoughts wouldn't let him rest at all. He should be happy that his Hyung found love, but he was thinking about what had happened, how Namjoon and Jin met, and why Taehyung is feeling like something more had happened. He was so lost in his mind that he didn't notice Jungkook coming in and closing the door. The bed dipped beside him and he sat up with a faint smile. Hello, dearest. Jungkook pulled him closer and planted a sweet kiss on his lips. How was your day? Taehyung asked, resting his head against his husband's chest. Oh, it was good, but you can make it better. Really? Taehyung looked at him. How? by letting me ravish you, Jungkook said bluntly. Despite his thought mode, Jungkook laughed. Huh. Now I was very serious, Jungkook said, holding back a smile he loved, making Taeyong laugh. How about I ravish you, dear husband? Taeyong stuck out his tongue and grabbed Jungkook through his pant. Easy there, Jungkook glanced at the boy's action. I changed my mind. I will let you do all the work. Taeyong grinned cheekily. I will be glad, love. And Taeyong forgot all about Jin and Namjoon, and as he will think about them later. Time escaped. Taeyong would say his life was going good. His husband was finally opening up to him. He paid visits to his family every now and then, and he got to know how Jin and Namjoon fell in love with him. Wow, everything seems perfect. Alleged perfection is a myth, and this was only the calm before the storm, or so they would find out. Really, they sat on sofa doing nothing but relaxing and drinking his favorite tea. Sometimes you just accepted your fate. There was a knock on the door. He frowned. Jungkook doesn't knock. Who could it be? Oh, it could be just the queen. Come in, it's open, they called out, and he started sipping his tea again. Prince Taeyong. Taeyong looked up as the door opened and shut again. A servant entered. The butler looked nearly appointed. Taeyong had never seen him around before. Strange. What it is? Taeyong asked and he stood up with his cup in his hand. Instead of replying, the butler, who walked over to him, they frowned. What do you want? It happened in a flash. Before they had time to react, the butler had hit his neck and Taeyong immediately blacked out. His cup crashed on the floor. Tea spilled on the carpet. Navy boy. With Jungkook. Jungkook sighed as he finished checking the last sheet of paper. It was just some account of traders, something that his past self would not concern himself with. But the prince was now ready to become responsible and take over the throne soon, giving his father the joy of retirement as well as the relief of leaving the kingdom in Abel's hand. He had been skipping his dinner today, asking his parents and husband to eat without him just to complete this extra work. Why the sudden change, you ask? Well, it was because of someone. He was willing to change his cruel ways and act like a prince. He was someone who had been his turn point, someone who was able to convince him to change again, something that his past self would loathe to admit. Thing was an additional in his life that was unwanted at first but had somehow warmed up his heart enough to make room for Jungkook's bright screen. He couldn't imagine his life without his husband now. Jungkook would tell Taehyung that someday, thinking of his beloved husband, he stretched up the papers neatly and decided to retire for the day. As he passed the hallway, he noticed something that disturbed him. There was no guard around the east wing where Taehyung and his chamber was. He was really confused now. Usually there was at least 2 guards at the east wing entrance. Today there was none. The prince frowned and walked swiftly to the nearest guard that was standing far away from his room. Listen, he called for the guard. Why are there no guards in the east wing? The guard, if it was possible, looked more confused than him. But My prince, you ordered us not to guard the left wing today. What the heck? Jungkook spotted in disbelief. I did no such thing. Yes, you did, Your Majesty. Another guard spoke up, forward and handed him a piece of paper. He sent this message to us by means of a butler. Guards, none of you to guard the east wing today. Prince Jeon Jungkook. I did not write this message. Jungkook crumbled up the paper with, what kind of prank was this? And you fools don't believe any message like this unless I deliver them myself or on a royal parchment. He shook his head in their stupidity. The royal guards, to be this careless was utterly dangerous. And then he remembered something. Jungkook turned without a word and ran as fast as his leg carried him. Taehyung. Jungkook burst into the room, his heart jumping to his throat when he found it empty. Oh God. He opened the washroom door with trembling hands but found it empty too. No. A dread spread in his stomach when he found the room empty of his husband. No. His eyes went to the desk on which a piece of paper similarly to the one given to the guard was sitting. He had never been more scared in his life as he picked up. The message was simple. Don't look for me, Taehyung. The paper fell from his hand along with tears that fell from his eyes. His worst fear had come true. Taehyung had left him. Jin fidgeted nervously outside Jungkook's room. He was there with Namjoon for his wedding preparation, and he had heard of Taehyung's departure and refused to believe unless he saw the proof with his own eyes. So he had rushed to the chamber. He pushed the door open slightly and gasped at the sight. The room was a mess. Nothing was in place. It looked like a disaster had struck it. Everything was destroyed. In a fit of rage or pain, Jin wasn't sure if the prince looked worse than the room beyond the tear tracks and the hand lying limp. While Jungkook sat with his back against the side of the bed in a messy room, Jin saw something that sent a pang in his heart. He looked defeated. The room full was destroyed furniture and things, and yet it was still empty. Jin tentatively walked forward and stood in front of the sitting figure. What do you want? The voice was tired, like someone had made him carry a burden on his shoulder. Jin had no answer. He still couldn't bring himself to accept the fact that Taehyung had actually left, and why would he? Actually, as much as Jin knows, he was happy here. The prince looked away and gave a dry snort. Your brother ran away. What do you want now, Jin? Jin answered calmly, Your Majesty. How could you say that Taehyung left on his own will? Jungkook fixed him with a glare that would melt glacier. And threw a crumbled paper to him. Jin catch it in midair and read it. He judged a brow and snorted loudly. Seriously, his suspicion was corrected. You know nothing about my brother, do you, Prince Jungkook? The said prince looked at him sharply. Look, if you... Jin cut him off with a dismissing wave. This is not Taehyung's writing, Your Majesty, he said sarcastically. Meanwhile, with Taekook woke with a start as water splashed onto his face. He gasped and shook his head, his dizzy mind wandering. And what happened with him? He vaguely recalled a butler, or not a butler, coming in his room, a pain on his neck, and then pitch darkness. He was abducted. Had a good sleep, princess? They gulped and looked up to the source of voice in fear. He had half expected to see a big, scary-looking man, but rather saw a man at age of his husband Jungkook. It was the same fake butler that had struck him. Still, the boy looked barely 20. Who are you? They stupidly asked, trying to keep his voice from cracking, knowing that the doctor probably wouldn't answer. They looked around his surroundings. The room was not as dark and scary as he expected. It looked more like someone's storeroom. There was cold, old, dusty slabs full of different things, a chair that looked like it would break if someone sat on it, and 2 light bulbs hanging from the ceiling. The paint on the wall was chipping off, and there were several cupboards in the corner. The room had definitely seen better days. Why did you bring me here? Taekook asked again. The boy just stared at him passively and said, "Shut up." Feeling like an idiot, Taekook tried to sit up, but without his hands, it was troublesome. He put pressure on the ground, his feet on the tiled floor, and managed to sit up. There was a little edge in his upper back, but he tried to ignore it. Where am I? They blurred out again. The boy looked at him with bored face, then he at his clock hanging on the wall, and then again at him. He finally said, "You are annoying." They felt anger creep up on him and replacing with fear. He wanted to berate the boy that was probably elder than him and smack his head. Youth had no respect these days. After all, Taekook is future king. The boys should respect him. I should just knock you out again, the boy called and took on a firm voice. Untie me. They hoped it would work. But the boy just snorted and walked over to the big chair and sat down. He looked like he was impatient, waiting for something or someone. Yet again, feeling stupid or for getting no answer, they tasted the beads on his hand. They were steady, but not tight enough to cut off circulation of blood, and Taekook was surprised that the captor was a little considerate. Maybe it could get him sympathy for me. Taekook's mind wandered off his husband, Jungkook. Was he looking for Taekook? Would he find him? Would he even care? He scoffed as his own thought for questioning his husband. Of course, Jungkook would come for him. He loved him, right? But then again, the prince had never actually admitted his love, but Taekook could only hope that the loving gesture there were genuine and his husband actually did care. There were just so many questions in his mind that he felt like crying. Why did this happen to him? What reason did the boy have for taking him away? Most of all, how did he even manage to drag Taekook out of castle with that huge body of his. Apparently, Taehyung had asked that out loud because the educator actually answered, much to his surprise. I throw you off your window and jump after you. Your guts are stupid and easily fooled. The boy scowled again and remarked, fear not, my husband will not be fooled and will come for me. Taehyung was not sure that he could believe his own solid words. I expect him not to be one too. There was a smirk in his voice, yet the boy's face revealed no emotion, and then something triggered in Taehyung's brain. How did you get past the main gate guards? They asked in disbelief, just like I took you out, Your Majesty. The boy said. Taehyung looked with disbelief. The boys nodded and nodded. They were drunk and out of it. You should hire some responsible guards. You didn't look like you could fool so many people, drunk or not, Taehyung blurted. Taehyung's statement finally got a reaction out of the boy. Apparently, the boy didn't like being looked down upon because he's growled. Do not underestimate someone yet you don't know, Your Majesty. Realizing that the boy was answering now, Taehyung kept himself strong and asked again, why did you bring me here? He was proud when his voice did not crack. At this time there was silence. The boy was back into his emotionless mask, thinking that he wasn't going to get any answer now. Taehyung mentally sighed and at himself and looked a little put out. But the boys were surprising. I brought her here to lure out a prince. Taehyung had previously wished that Jungkook came to save him, but now he wanted to take it all back. It was all a trap. The educator was just using him to get to the prince for some hidden shady agenda, and Taehyung would rather die himself than put his husband in danger. You royals, the boy started. Looking down, Taehyung noticed that his fist was clenched. Every one of you royals think that you are better than everyone else. Before Taehyung could say anything, he continued, but in reality, each one of you is nothing but selfish, egoistic freak. His voice was rising. Taehyung trailed off. He did not want to say if he said something wrong, he could risk his life, but he wasn't too keen on the idea of saying any word of comfort to the editor. I'm not really a royal. Yes, you are not. The editor nodded, more to himself. You are just a commoner like me. Taehyung tasted the beads on his hand again. Maybe there was a way he could get the ropes loose enough to get him out of it. Yet you are so precious to our dear prince. They felt strangely uncomfortable as the editor walked towards him. They immediately stopped his fiddling with his feet. Wonder what make you a commoner just like me makes you special. The boy was now looking straight at Taehyung. What did he see in you? You are nothing special, and he still cares for you, doesn't he? I am not so sure of that myself, Taehyung thought, but refrained from voicing it out. Instantly he decided to clear his shrinking suspicious. Are you in love with Jungkook? And then the strange thing happened. The boy looked at Taehyung purely for a moment, then he threw his head back and laughed and laughed and laughed. He laughed so loudly and hard that he was almost bent over. He clenched on the wall for support as his body shook with the ridiculous laugh. He laughed, snicked, and laughed for a minute, and as a result, he was soon out of breath, but still didn't stop his laughs. He continued laughing and was soon on the floor. Taekook had never felt so silly, stupid, out of place, and utterly lame in his entire life. He mentally waked himself for asking the question and causing the boy to have such a maniacal laughing fit. The editor finally controlled his laughing and stood straightening himself, yet his face twitched with a smile when he had his emotionless mask on, and then realized he was still a boy and did not deserve anything that caused him to become like this. Now, I am not in love with him. Taekook did not whether to believe or not, and then his eyes held so much contempt that Taekook forgot his previous feeling of pity for the body. I want to kill him. And Taekook did believe these words. The search team were ready. The person who did this was extremely smart, although the guards were bit of a fool. Jungkook could not ignore the fact that Jungkook had been close to getting fooled himself. Had it not been for Jin and his recognition of Taekook's handwriting, Jungkook would have probably been wallowing in self-pity and being miserable. Jungkook knew he will find Tae, but as of now they had no leads. I think there is an address written on the carpet, and Jin was exceptionally smart and sharp. Jungkook nodded at him, silently urging him to go on. It's in the artist's court. If this really is the kidnapper's hideout, why would he leave the address here like this? Why would he want you or anyone else to find him? Does he want us to follow him? Jin voiced out his question. Moreover, how did he even manage to escape with him without anyone noticing him or stopping him? Well, the stable guard told me that this morning that one of our fastest horse, Syria, is missing. The prince provided helpfully. I think that makes sense. It would become easier for him to carry Taekook that way. Jungkook muttered to himself. Now the real question: who was he and what could he possibly want with Taekook? Whoever the heck he is, be better not hurt Taekook or he will face something worse than death itself, Jungkook said angrily. Jin shook his head at him. It looked like a trap, but for Taekook, we need to take the risk. Jin turned and started walking out of the room. Let's go, Prince, Jin said, his voice determined. Yes, thank you for the helping me, Jin Hyung. Jungkook corrected himself. Jin waved his thanks away and urged him to follow him. Yes, how? And one more thing. Yes, the prince asked. You need to hire some better guards as soon as possible. With Taekook, what is your name? Ignored. When will you let me go? Ignored again. My back is stiffy. History repeated. Don't make me put a gag on you. Taekook ate his words. It seems hours had passed since he was brought here. His doubt of being rescued had only increased while he was getting tired and bored of just sitting there miraculously. His editor was contented to just sit there doing nothing, his face showing no sign of boredom. He rejected Taehyung's any attempt to make conversation and hopefully getting some answers. And he did quite effectively so. Like he would been ignoring people all his life. Well, he does make himself look like a social outcast. Taehyung was really surprised when the boy spoke after a few minutes of silence. Want to hear a story? Taehyung was stumbled and mumbled, "Oh, yes, but why?" He asked confusedly. "Shut up and listen quietly and answer my questions when I ask you," the boy commanded. Taehyung was reminded of his school days when his master would teach a student a lesson and then ask them queries based on it. He nodded dumbly. The doctor took a deep breath and started. There was a king and he ruled a small empire. He was seemingly perfect, just intelligent and merciful. The boy had grown a far-off expression on his face, but no one knew how arrogant he was of the fact that royalty flowed in his blood. He was clenched and unclenched his fist again. In his young days of ruler, after his father passed away and succeeded the throne, although arrogant, he took care of his subjects. The people were happy with him and the atmosphere was peaceful. Taehyung listened carefully, intrigued, and then one day he ordered two men younger than him, only in their 20s, so young to be executed only because they were in love, and it went against from his force of nature. He spat. Taehyung had a horrified look on his face. No one questioned him, no one dared to. The two men was begged for mercy but were denied. Their family cried, they cried, but no one listened. The life continued after the execution as if nothing happened. Taehyung felt extremely saddened. In the same land there was an orphan boy, about 7, extremely lonely and sad. No one paid more attention to him, and they had to. Why would they? He was nothing. Royalty was the farthest thing he could imagine. Taehyung thought he heard the boy's voice crack a little at the end, and then light shined in his forlorn life. He was adopted by two loving people. For the first time, he was loved and cared for and he was happy. He didn't mind that his parents were two men. He based in their affection. Taehyung had a seeking feeling, but alas, the happy life did not last long. The ruler of the land ordered his parents to be killed for being in love. The boy did not understand why. His home was snatched away from him, his safe haven. For while he cried and blamed his cruel fate, but as he grew up, he knew better. Taehyung felt a tear run down his face. The boy looked at him. His face was still emotionless, but The boy looked at him. His face was still emotionless, but his eyes, they were so sad and lonely that Taekook figured who the boy from the story was. Say, Taekook, would you call it bad if the boy grew up to hate the royalties and the king? Wouldn't you? He did not wait for an answer as Taekook was speechless and continued. Would you blame him if he wanted vengeance? He got up and walked towards Taekook. Why was he denied love of a parent, a comfort of a home? Why were the man denied love or mercy? He crunched, looked at Taekook in his eyes. Would you blame the little boy if he grew up wanting revenge, if he wanted blood for blood, if he wanted to kill the king's only son? Taekook's eyes widened when he could not utter a word. The reality of being in such a dangerous situation struck him. Suddenly a fear crept up in his mind. You are lucky that you are beautiful, Taekook. I would have destroyed anyone's face. Else's face, and then Taekook felt pain, horrible, terrific, sharp pain in his abdomen. His horrified face looked down to see a knife impaled on him. His world faded to black. With Jungkook was not getting a good feeling as he and Tae approached the hideout. A dress left behind by the doctor. He could feel a physical sense of bad omen, and he just wished that his love safe and sound. Yes, his love. He was finally ready to admit his feelings. Taekook's disappearance had made him realize how much he longed to hold his husband in his arms, how much he missed his big shy grin and innocent loving heart, the lips that called his name in passion and the eyes that were always filled with love for him. Jungkook would take him home, confess his love and really make them true husband. But all his worst and darkest nightmare was about to be confirmed as he walked through the dark alley. The addicted alley was chilly and still. There was no sound of life. It was horrible. The sound that mentioned address. It was an random shake similar to every building in that particular alley. That the two guards that he had brought with them were silent, waiting for the prince's order. They followed the two ahead and kept his face straight. Jin, for the life of him, could not shake off the feeling of uneasiness as they stood in front of the door. Jin pointed in a silent gesture to this is it and moved to push the door open. To his surprise, it was left open. Taking a breath, he opened it. The door opened, creaking, and four of them prepared themselves. Jin was unfortunately the first to see. His mouth opened in a scream. Jungkook had talked and dark suspicions about Taekook's condition, and Jin's scream confirmed them. He pushed the front back, beckoning Jin aside, and oh God, my God, his eyes widened, his lips opened in a gasp and held his breath. A sob threatened his throat. He could cry in agony, shout in misery, but he could not. Thing was there. They found him, expect not. His prostrate body lied in pool of blood. His eyes closed and his face was calm. That one could mistaken him for sleeping soundly if not for the knife implanting in his abdomen. The sight broke him. Jin was unmoving. The guards were shocked. The prince rushed forward with the pained cry of his love's name. Kneeling by him, he took his husband's head in his lap and kept chanting Taekook, Taekook, Taekook in futile vain hopes that he would wake up. Jungkook decided to act with intellect and put 2 fingers on his neck pulse, and dear God, thank God, it was there. The relief that rushed through Jungkook was enough to knock on him, but he stayed out and removed the knife gently. He trained his training as a soldier, helping him. He threw the knife away and venomous face. Then he moved to pick up Taekook carefully. He looked behind and see Jin crying like a moron for his brother and 2 guards immobile. Help me, you idiot! He snapped at one of the guards, annoyed. The guard broke out of track and ran to him. Both of them helped Jungkook carry Taekook with care outside and sick in their carriage. Waiting outside the alley, they failed to notice the other body in the room. He was crouched down with his nail drawn up and head down in the far corner of the room. But Jin did. He marched to the boy and grabbed him by his hair and yanked him up. If Jin was surprised at seeing tears on the face, he hid it well. He spoke with poison lacing on his voice, his eyes red but firm, his word that promised pain and no mercy. You are coming with me. He yanked the boy up from the couch, and the bastard did not even protest. They grabbed his hand harshly and brought him in front. He nodded to the other guard and the soldier took out a pair of coke from his waistband and locked the boy's hand together. Jin yanked and string on the cuff forward, and the boy moved headboard as if regretting his action. Jin was surprised at the boy, but that did this. The boy had the nerve to let tears out after doing this. Thought that maybe the boy did cross Jin's mind, but he dismissed it. His brother's blood on the boy's young face spoke for the terrible actions the boy was going to pay. Jin decided, but now Taekook's safety was the main concern. Jin returned and walked out the guard with the culprit. So everyone, there is one more episode left, the last one. I hope you will love it, and see you soon with another Taekook concert after this one. Till then, take care of yourself. Bye bye.